Welcome back to Bowl Game Radio with Bruce Binkowski and Mark Neville on San Diego's sports leader, the mighty 1090.
Welcome back, everybody, to our third segment of Bowl Game Radio tonight. And just a reminder that Bowl Game Radio is brought to you in part by San Diego County Credit Union. It's not big bank banking, it's better. And MJE Marketing. Creative, connected, and always curious. Visit mjemarketing.com.
Now, we use this hour to talk about our two bowl games, the San Diego County Credit Union Poinsettia Bowl and the National University Holiday Bowl. But we do other things as well. For example, the streets of downtown San Diego will come alive on December the 26th. That's the day before the National University Holiday Bowl with the Port of San Diego Big Bay Balloon Parade. Now, this is an exciting family event, brings together world-class marching bands, magnificent floats, entertaining drill teams, giant balloons. It's just fun for the whole family. Over 100,000 people every year come down to the Port of San Diego Big Bay Balloon Parade. And this year, if you're a regular, for the first time, it's at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's an afternoon parade on December the 26th. So make your plans. Just go to SanDiegoBowlGames.com for more information.
And I did a National University Holiday Bowl spot in that last segment. I'm going to do a San Diego County Credit Union Poinsettia Bowl one now. The 10th annual San Diego County Credit Union Poinsettia Bowl returns Tuesday, December 23rd. The game will feature a team from the Mountain West against the Navy Midshipmen. Cross your fingers. They're going to be bowl eligible. I feel it. Bring the family for this 10th anniversary celebration. The UT San Diego Family 4-Pack includes 4 plaza-level tickets, 4 hot dogs, 4 sodas, and a game program for just $150. It's a great deal. And as we just talked with Chris Sitchell on that last segment, $1 from each ticket sold goes right back to Make-A-Wish San Diego. For information, visit SanDiegoBowlGames.com or call 619-285-5061. That family 4-pack is a great deal.
It is. Now, before we go to our guest, Ed Graney, so Ed, hang on just a minute. We don't have a call? Okay, so we're going to go right to Ed Graney. He's the sports columnist for the Las Vegas Review-Journal, covering a variety of topics and the Las Vegas sports scene. You may recognize the name, as he was formerly with the San Diego Union-Tribune. He covers the Mountain West, a graduate, by the way, of San Diego State University. Ed Graney from the Las Vegas Review-Journal, thanks for joining. I'm Bruce Binkowski, along with Mark Neville.
Guys, how are you? Good to be with you.
Good to have you with us. And by the way, you can follow Ed at Ed Graney. Is that Twitter? I don't understand that stuff. Ed, is that?
I have it. I don't understand it half the time either.
Excellent.
But if you could have played it off,
Bruce, but if you do the at Ed Graney, then you can figure it out. All right.
Yeah.
So, Ed, let's start talking. We're going to ask you a little bit later who's going to be in our 2 bowl games because we don't know. So we're going to try and get, maybe you can tell us who's going to be in our game. But
that's why he's on the show. We want him to tell us.
But let's talk about this new college football playoffs. There's 4 teams that will play for a chance to meet in the national championship game. Now, we have not yet gone through the process. This is the first year of the college football playoffs, and already there are cries to extend it from 4 teams to 8 teams. So let's just get to it. Where do you stand on this? Should there be 4, 8, or more?
So I would prefer 8, and I think the more Jim Delaney's conference gets shut out, we'll get to 8 quicker. So I'm kind of actually anti-Big Ten because the more that guy gets shut out, they're probably going to get to 8 quicker. So I think 8 is fair. I've never bought into the arguments about the school, the 1AAs that had playoffs for years, and those kids seem to graduate, and those kids seem not to, fall over from exhaustion from going to school. So I think 8's a fair number. I think you get a lot more arguments from 5 than you would from 9. I mean, you'd get arguments from 9, but they wouldn't hold as much water as maybe a 5 would in this year or any year. So I've always been a proponent of 8. I think it's a perfect number. I think, and Bruce, you know this as well as anyone with TV sponsorships and who rules college football, which are those people, I think we'll eventually get to 8 because I think it just makes more. They're going to see how much money this 4 makes. They're going to see how much money the championship makes. They're going to see how much is bet on it, not only in Vegas but across the world. And they're going to see how huge this thing is. So I think eventually it'll get to 8, and I hope it does. And like I said, more the Big Ten gets shafted in their own minds, I think we get to 8 pretty quick.
Well, and it's going to be interesting to find out when that occurs, because I think I agree with you that it'll probably end up at 8 at some point, even though a lot of people would prefer 4. But the way they did this, it's a 12-year agreement with this college football playoff. So I've always been under the impression that 6 years into it, it could get to 8. Could happen sooner, though. Could happen sooner, but I'm going to go with 6 years down the road is when it's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're going to look at obviously what happens, and I think everyone's everyone's trying to take a breath in terms of these weekly rankings. Obviously ESPN has the rights, and I think that's why we're getting these weekly rankings. I don't know if those 12 people in the room really want these out each week. It does nothing really for them. I mean, I guess it's a little transparency in the process, but, they can just take heat from it no matter who they come out with each week. So I was a little surprised they went for it. But again, TV rules the world, and if ESPN wants it, they were going to get it. So we'll see how long 4 goes. I'm excited. I mean, I've watched both weeks. I write about it for the paper. I can't wait till next Tuesday. So at least it's made people really interested about the process and who's going to be able to be in those 4.
We agree with you on that one for sure. Now, access, we have 10 conferences in FBS football, 5 of them being the so-called Big Five, if you will, and then we have the other 5 conferences, the Mountain West, Sun Belt Conference USA. What do you think, and the access for them, they are guaranteed 1 spot of the 12, 1 spot. 1 team is guaranteed 1 spot. Do you think that's fair? Should it be expanded? What are your thoughts on that one?
Well, I mean, I've always kind of gone really extreme on this. I thought the BCL was a cartel. I thought it was completely inequitable financially to schools across the country, but I don't know what their alternative is. They're not going to fight these people. I mean, the Mountain West champion, let's say Colorado State's in play if they go 11-1, and obviously they don't like Marshall very well because they can't crack this 25, so let's say Colorado State's in play there. I mean, Craig Thompson's not going to fight that. He's going to do everything he can to get his 1 team in there and get the spot. So, of course, it's inequitable. Of course, it's unfair financially across the country, but you fight them too much, and then you may never have the spot. They might just say, you know what, it's over. We're taking the 50 or 40, whatever their magic number is, and we're headed out. And if the TV goes with them, the NCAA is not going to stop them. I mean, they're not going to rule college football. The TVs do, and the sponsors do, and the bowls do, and the Power 5 does. So, while I think it's unfair, of course, I think this is the best they can do. I think the San Diego States, if they stay in the Mountain West, the Colorado States, the UNLVs, I think this is the best they will have in the current system, and you do your best to get in the game.
You're listening to Bowl Game Radio on the mighty 1090. I'm Bruce Binkowski along with Mark Neville, and we're speaking with a columnist for the Las Vegas Review-Journal, Ed Graney, San Diego State University grad who covers all sports, but, of course, we're talking college football. Ed, you started out at San Diego State. Was it your dream to always become a college football writer, a sports writer?
Well, the sports writer, yeah, definitely. Because I learned very quickly that 5'10" really slow guys with a decent, a halfway decent jump shot was never going anywhere. So I had to write about it, and when I stopped playing it, I mean, I
sound a lot like me.
You have to be around it instead of actually compete. So yeah, I mean, I majored in English at San Diego State, and I was very, very fortunate to have a boss named Bob Wright, who's no longer with us. Call me the day I actually had my referee shirt on to go work at Foot Locker to put myself through San Diego State. He called me and said, an opening just opened in the sports department at the Union. That time there were 2 papers. And he said, do you want it? And put it this way, I never wore that referee shirt again. So that was it. And I was very fortunate, and he kind of started my career. I'll always be indebted to Bob.
Yeah, he was one of the good ones, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So, Ed, you're obviously a San Diego guy. You spent many years now in Las Vegas. Can you compare the 2 sports scenes? I mean, in terms of the people that live in Las Vegas and the way they are with sports, and here in San Diego, what's the difference?
Well, I mean, I'm sitting right now in a press room waiting. UNLV has their first exhibition basketball game tonight, and this is likened to sitting at the Charger game, and this is their pro team. Right. So this is, I mean, you can take basketball here, and I always say this, and a good friend of all of ours, and the godfather of my daughter, Nick Canepa, dear friend. He's right. He said, you could write about the Chargers in San Diego 365 days a year, and everyone would read it'd be the most read story. Well, I could write about UNLV basketball 365 days a year. I don't, but I could, and it would be the most read story. So that's the difference. I mean, their pro team is literally a college team. It's not even close in terms of anything else here. So that's different. There's no pro team. MGM is building their arena. I do think the NHL will come here. I think it's going to be the guinea pig. I think hockey will be here within 4 years. But until then, it's always been UNLV basketball, and it will continue to be so.
And as a columnist, you don't have a regular beat, so you can just, write about anything and everything. Over the years in your career as a sports writer, is there one game, one team, one season that really stands out to you as, wow, what a great experience that was for me as a writer?
Probably the first time Steve Fisher, I covered Steve Fisher's first 7 years at San Diego State, and the first time they went to the NCAA tournament. And I'll always remember this. I was sitting with him at DZ Aikens after his first year, and they were great kids on that team. They were great. But when myself and Ziegler and a couple other media guys could have played them full court and not been completely embarrassed. You knew the talent level. So he knew what he had to do, and he knew the mountain he had to climb to make them competitive basketball. And I still contend, and I hope they name the court after him one day. I would assume that's in the works. It should be if it's not, that his job at that school is likened to most anyone historically in college basketball. Now, they don't have the Final Four banners and everything, but if you know where they came from to what he's now built it's ridiculous. So the first time they went to the tournament and I was able to cover that was incredible because I had covered their first team, and I knew how bad they were, and they were really good kids, but they just couldn't play. So I'll always remember covering Steve throughout those years. Because now, obviously, I cross paths with UNLV and San Diego State, but Steve Fisher, I'm not back there anymore, but whatever they do for him when he finally retires, naming the court or whatever, it won't be enough because I knew where he started from.
We're talking with Ed Graney here on Bowl Game Radio, and we're going to go back to football now here, Ed. And out there in Las Vegas, UNLV last year had a pretty exciting season. They made it to a bowl game, to the Heart of Texas Bowl. There's some excitement with Rebels football. This year, they're having some problems. What's going on out in Las Vegas?
Yeah, they just couldn't sustain it. You give them credit for last year. They won 7. They won close games. They had a really good senior leadership and quarterback, a kid who came in 4 or 5 games in who had been a quarterback before. So they got fortunate with some results. They're just a struggling football program. I mean, there's no two ways to put it. I mean, it was a good year for them, but they haven't been able to sustain it. And they just don't have the level of players year in, year out that they're going to be able to sustain something like that. And really, I mean, I wrote this earlier in the year. I don't think it's changed. I think the entire Mountain West, save a few teams at the top, is easily and arguably the weakest it's ever been. There's no question about that. I mean, if you look at the West Division right now, there's one team over 500. Obviously, the Mountain's a little better. Colorado State, I think, is a good football team. I think Boise's good. It's not Boise of the past. And, I mean, Utah State, he's obviously a good coach. There's 6 wins. I think they're on their 4th quarterback. But overall, it's just not a good conference this year. You can't hide the warts. So UNLV is really, really struggling to find any kind of consistency football-wise, and they just haven't been able to do it for whatever reason. Recruiting, coaching, I mean, you can put everything in the hot hat and come up with reasons, and they're probably all part of it.
Do you think, and you were talking about Boise State and Colorado State really kind of being the class of the conference at this point, does Boise State have what it takes to win out and make it to the championship game?
Yeah, I think they do. And here's, this is where I think is going to, I hope the conference doesn't get hurt, but if Colorado State would win out, they're still going to have that one loss to Boise, and I would assume that's the head-to-head tiebreaker, so Boise would go to the championship game, and maybe Bruce can tell me. I was actually, on my radio show today, we were talking about this, and I don't even know if no one's ranked in the top 25 in the non-power fives. I assume some computer decides who's the highest-ranked one, so you could actually have a Colorado State sitting there at 11-1, not a conference champion, but being able to get into that one game because they're the highest ranked by the computers. My opinion is, even though Boise State beat Colorado State, that Colorado State is the best team in the conference. But yeah, I mean, Boise, San Diego State, I think has to go there. The Aztecs weren't overly impressive the other night at Reno. They just really struggled against what is a decent but not a great Reno team. So I think Boise State probably wins out, and then you're going to have issues there with those top 2 teams, and I think you're going to have issues with who the Las Vegas Bowl is compelled to take, or who they, want to take. And then, you guys at the poinsettia, I mean, I think, you kind of got to do what's best for your bowl game.
Well, it's interesting. We were talking about the Colorado State, Boise State Marshall issue earlier. Yeah. Mark Neville and I had to go to Los Angeles for a meeting, and
8 hours on a train with Bruce
together.
Binkowski. Yeah. It was so fun.
Yeah, and spending all that time with Mark Neville. But anyway, we talked about that, and Mark had an interesting comment about if Marshall was shut out and Colorado State jumped over them, that would be quite a controversy for the college football playoffs.
I noticed the 2 things I wanted to know about the committee from week 1 to week 2 is where they put Mississippi. And once they dropped into 11, they're telling you don't lose. So, and I agree with that. I do. But the other thing I wanted to see is once East Carolina lost, horrible loss to Temple, you can't lose that game if you're going for the one spot. Where would Marshall fall? They didn't even get in there still. So to me, someone or the majority in that room is not impressed with Marshall. And obviously, they're probably not impressed with Marshall's schedule.
That's the problem. Yeah.
That wins every game, but it's got to be their schedule. So if I'm Colorado State right now, I don't know what they're thinking of me, but I want to win out because they're telling you that if Marshall's not in the 25 at this point, it's in play. And if you're Colorado State, you went out and you're sitting there at 11-1. I think you probably have a really good argument for the one spot.
And I think at that point, the top 25. I would assume that Colorado State would be in the top 25 if they win out the rest of the season, and then
one of those are going to have to eventually get in, whether it be Marshall as an undefeated team or Colorado State, where if they perceive the Mountain West, ironically this year it's kind of funny to say this, but if they perceived a better league and a tougher schedule for Colorado State, that they give them the spot. So, I mean, it'd be huge in a year where the Mountain West is obviously down. I mean, teams like Fresno lost a lot of good players. I mean, this is just a year where they're down because a lot of players left. Chucky Keaton gets hurt again. In a year where the Mountain West might be at its weakest, ironically, they might have a really good shot at the BCS game, and good for them because it's a lot of money for the league, and it's a league that needs that kind of infusion to get in those games.
You know, I'm just looking at the current rankings of the college football playoff, and you see from 17 down, Utah, UCLA, Arizona, Georgia, Clemson, West Virginia, Georgia Tech, Wisconsin. They all have 2 losses. They're going to have more. Some of those teams are going to have more than 2 losses, and when they drop to 3 or possibly even 4, and a Colorado State wins out, that's how they could jump into the top 25. So it's going to be very interesting.
I think if Colorado State's 11-1, I think you guys are right. I think they jump in. And I know Mike Hamrick used to be the AD at UNLV, and I know he went and hired a PR firm for his Marshall team, but you better look into hiring someone else, because at this point, if you're undefeated at this point and you're not even on their minds to get in the 25, they are telling you something.
Ed, one last question for you before we run. Are you a Heisman voter?
No, I am not. No, I do the Wooden. I do mostly basketball awards.
Okay,
but I'm not in Heisman.
If you were, who would you pick? The kid out of Oregon?
Ironically, I would pick the kid at this point because I think he's been the most impressive given their schedule, the kid from TCU. I don't think he'd win it. I think Mariota would win it if everyone's voting today. I think Mariota wins it. He's a great player. But I think the kid from TCU, if he wins this week, and if they run the table, they're in. So if that kid can beat Kansas State and run the table and get a team that I don't think, and Bruce, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think they were preseason top 25.
No, I don't.
I don't think anyone thought TCU had anything.
No.
If this kid could go one loss through that conference and get them there, I would probably give him my vote.
Ed Graney, sports columnist for the Las Vegas Review-Journal. Thanks for taking the time to join us and talk some college football, throw in a little basketball too, and we appreciate you taking the time, and have fun tonight at the basketball game.
Hey, great. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, and say hi to everyone back in San Diego.
I sure will. Ed Graney from the Las Vegas Review-Journal.
We got to take a break. We went long on that segment, but that was good stuff with Ed Graney. When we come back, we're going to close out the show. You're listening to Bowl Game Radio on the San Diego Bowl Game Media Network and the Mighty 1090.